welcome back to my channel, the AstroImaging Journey. Today I'd like to discuss what got me into astrophotography, astroimaging, and are you already one? Many years ago, I'm over 40, so quite a few decades ago, it was not uncommon to have to actually get outside to get your entertainment. We didn't have smartphones, we didn't have computers, we didn't have a lot of the electronics we have today that keep us engaged inside the house, looking down, getting a little crick in our necks. And we actually had to get out there in the real world and experience what nature has for us. And to that end, I remember many days, many nights, going camping, fishing trips, just sitting in the backyard. We grew up in a rural community around some farmland. Skies were nice and dark, and you could just sit out under the stars, look up, and be amazed and see an awful lot of stars. And I have lived in the cities where you can't see but the brightest stars most nights. And then I've been in a couple areas, namely, thanks to the Army and a slight detour to Iraq, some very dark skies where you can see a lot. And those are the nights that I love, where you can just sit out, look up, and just amaze at what is there, what you might think is there. Then I go back and I look at some of the programs that are available to us, like Stellarium and a few others. Sky Map is another on the phone, and that one's actually kind of interesting because you can look at a star and see it twinkle and wonder what is that, and take one of these apps, rotate your camera up, your phone up, and you can see that star in the screen and click on it and get information. Maybe it's not a star. Maybe it's really a galaxy. Maybe it's a globular cluster. There's a whole host of things up there that you just have to research. So as I got more and more into astronomy and astroimaging, astrophotography, and wanted to start look at doing this, I quickly realized that I was already doing astrophotography and I didn't even know it. And I'm willing to bet you are too. And why do I say that? And have you ever gone out at night and just looked at the moon? Maybe it's that super, what was it called? The super blood moon, or super blue moon. Either way, just happened a few months ago, and very close in its orbit, full moon, 99.9% illumination, I believe, that night. Just absolutely beautiful. And you look up at it and you just think to yourself, I like a picture of that. You break out your smartphone, you put it up there, you click the picture, you share it on Facebook. Well, surprisingly, you just took an astrophotograph. You are an astrophotographer. The eclipse happened last year. Again, a lot of us went out and with our smartphones and the glasses, and held them up there and took a picture of the eclipse, or what, maybe you had a rig like I did where you were able to actually screw a filter on there and take some time-lapse photos and just have a great old time. Again, it's out there, it's not on the Earth, it's an astro image, it's an astrophotographer, an astrophotograph. So you're already doing these things, and you didn't even realize that that is what you were doing. I didn't realize what I was doing. my first attempt at really trying to capture something that was out there. I don't remember the year right now, but it was the HaleBob comet. I was using an old Canon, at the time it wasn't that old, but it was a Canon 35mm roll film camera that you couldn't see the picture you took like you can with the DSLRs now. It was an SLR film, and I had to take several shots and hope and pray that when I got them developed, they turned out. Part of the problem was I used a 1-hour photo place to process the negatives and print out the pictures, and they said, oh, everything was black, we didn't print them. And lo and behold, they weren't truly black, it was just a night sky. And I had to actually send the negatives away to get them processed so that they would, so I would have my little image. Hopefully I have that on the screen here, and I've found it in my digital archive from when I scanned it. And as you can see, I'm going from memory here, it's a little fuzzy, not that great, a little grainy, but it was my first attempt. And it kind of hooked me a little bit, but life gets in the way, kids came along, job, you have responsibilities, and sometimes hobbies have to take a back seat. Not trying to say, I would have rather have done my hobby as opposed to, having my kids. That's not what I'm saying. Love my kids to death. They're the best things that ever happened to me. They are now grown. They are in college and doing their own thing. And now it's time for me to pull some of the hobbies out and explore them a little bit more. That life's allowed me to do that. So this is one of those hobbies that I've been wanting to get into for quite a while and haven't had a chance to. And I've had the joy of taking some moonshots recently with my DSLR. Actually several DSLRs. The Eclipse, like last year, like I mentioned, should be on the screen now. And as you can see, I'm just having fun with it. I can be a little bit of a perfectionist at times, so this Eclipse photo you see here, it's the time-lapse photo as the moon traversed in front of the sun. And you can see where, unfortunately, as much as I wanted to be a perfectionist and get it just right, the clouds got in the way, and they kind of messed a few of them images up. But it makes it unique. It makes it unique to me, which is special in and of itself. So whether you're a perfectionist or whether you're into it for the art or whatever the case may be, keep an open mind and just do you, and let the process come about. You can see in this Eclipse here that some of those things are they just add a little bit to the photo, and sometimes they take a little bit from the photo. But at the end, when you put it all together, it makes for an interesting story. And that's what we're telling, is the story of our universe through our eyes, through what we see and what the camera sees. Another image I'm going to put up here is what I felt was my first true attempt at astroimaging. Obviously the HaleBob comet was the first, but this image here is of the Milky Way galaxy. And what happened was, I live in a rural area again where my skies are fairly dark. Not dark like you would find out in the middle of the ocean, but they're fairly dark when it comes to the East Coast. It's around a 4.5 on the Bortle scale. More on that later in another video. But I was riding the motorcycle home one night and I could clearly see the Milky Way as I rounded a corner. And I thought that would be a great image. So I went inside, I got on my laptop and I pulled up Stellarium and I looked at where the Milky Way was in relationship to my house, and I thought to myself, you know, this thing is going to be right over the road, and if I can get in the middle of the road with a tripod and try to capture this image, this would be awesome. And this is what the result was. I overprocessed it a little bit. Some things are blown out. The Milky Way is a little wonky in a few areas because, you know, I hadn't tried processing photos like this before. I didn't realize the importance of darks and all these other terms we'll get into in later videos. But it was my first attempt at again, what I thought was astroimaging. And I fell in love. I saw what, you know, it was taken on a Canon Digital Rebel XSI, you know, very old by modern standards DSLR, and it still was able to produce a decent image that I then kind of messed up, and unfortunately I shot it in JPEG instead of RAW, so I lost some of the data and some other things. Again, you know, those are for later, those issues are for later videos. But then I started reading forums, and then I found out that there's a huge debate when you're taking a Milky Way shot, and if it's up in the sky, this is the key difference. If it's up in the sky and you don't have any landscape, you're taking an astro image, an astrophotograph. Unfortunately, for this one, I have the trees and the road. I have landscape in front of the ultimate target. And that we apparently call nightscape photography. Well, I didn't know the distinction until, you know, a year later or so, and lo and behold, it's like, okay, yeah, I can understand that. Landscape photography, nightscape, astroimaging. It's all semantics. Call it what you want. Don't listen to a lot of the negative speak that you see on forums and all these other good stuff. As long as you're doing you and you're happy with what you're producing, keep it up. So now here on the screen we have a few other images I've taken recently. You know, hopefully I'm talking long enough to give us about 5 to 10 seconds on each photo. You'll have, you know, I've got, you know, the supermoon, the blue moon, various shots of that, as well as we've got some star trails from different aspects, all taken from my property, from my front yard. And what you'll see here is, you know, again, nightscapes and astro images combined. Again, it's semantics in my opinion. I'm doing what I like with the equipment I have, and that's the key thing. Just get out there. Chances are you have a DSLR, you've got the memory card, a decent battery, kit lens. All you really need at that point, if you don't already have, is a tripod. All of the images up to this point that you've seen have all been taken with a $12 tripod, a Canon digital, a Canon EOS, either the Digital Rebel XSI or the Rebel T6i, and you know, you probably already have, and there were kit lenses, except for the introduction, the little time lapse that has the channels logo and everything, you know, that was with a newer 24mm prime lens that I recently purchased. So basically, take what you got and invest very little and just start taking, you know, photos. There's a ton of tutorials out there, both in PDF, web page form, and videos as well, of what you're going to do or what you need to do to take these types of shots. In particular, the one I have right here right now is what I like to call Landons Sky. And I'll be going through my process of this. No, that's not a true term for the night sky. You know, that's the northern sky, it's Polaris and the star trails around it. Just so happens that, you know, a sweet little boy was born that later that night. And when, you know, we got the phone call that, you know, Tina's daughter was potentially going to be in labor, you know, in May, you know, all indications were that he was going to be born by sunrise. I just felt I needed to capture the night sky as best I could, and this is one of the resulting images, and this is why I call it Landons Sky, because that's his name. So, you know, this is, so I'm going to go through, I've got all that stuff, and that's one of those things where I'm going to walk through what I did to capture these images, and how to create the star trails. So you'll have that for reference. Like I said, there's a ton of videos out there, and I'm just going to be adding to the mix as well for some of this stuff. So, you know, get out there, do it, take what you got, and then what we're going to be talking about in my next video is what I call 4D R3. Basically, decisions and research, that you have to basically make 4 decisions and 3 sets of research to ultimately get what you want, or at least that's my process. And again, I'm only here to help you by maybe understanding what I am doing and what my thought process was, and it's just another tool in your toolbox that may help you get where you want to go. And, you know, maybe it'll work for you, maybe it won't. It's working for me, and since it's working for me, it may work for somebody else. Hopefully it does. Please click the subscribe button down below, like this video if you did, and come back for my next video. Again, that's going to be 4D 3R. Good night and clear skies.